What's going on? Changed My Mind episode 4 here, and today's topic is how to legally not pay income tax. Now, before you call me a fraud, a tax cheat, or call the IRS in general, what I'm sharing with you is the law itself, which, when followed correctly, the IRS has no choice but to follow and give you your money back. Or in my case, I just don't pay in because I'm an entrepreneur. And so I don't pay in, but in your case, the money that you got taken automatically out of your checks, you can get all of that back so long as you know about a magical little thing called lawful money. Lawful money, the law in particular being Title 12 USC 411. It's this paragraph right here on the screen, and really the only part that matters is this last sentence that says they shall be redeemed in lawful money on demand at Treasury Department of the United States in the city of Washington, District of Columbia, or at any Federal Reserve Bank. So basically, this is incredibly vague, and it's made like that for a reason. But if you break it down into layman's terms, if you look at a dollar bill today, you can get out any dollar bill. I'll put one here on the screen. Ding. It can be a 1, a 5, a 10, a 20, a 50, a 100. It does not matter. Get out a dollar bill or look at the one on the screen. And what you'll notice is that bill has 2 seals on it. So if you look at that note and you realize at the top that it says Federal Reserve Notes, you wonder, well, then why does it have a Treasury seal? Why doesn't it just have a Federal Reserve seal? And the reason that is because anyone that knows how to demand lawful money, they can actually assume the Treasury seal rather than the Federal Reserve seal. And now bears the question, why would you want to do that? Why does it matter if you have Federal Reserve notes or Treasury notes? Well, the reason that it matters is because prior to 1913, when the Federal Reserve and the IRS took money off of the gold and silver standard, prior to that, there was no black seal that said Federal Reserve. There was only the green, or in that time, blue seal that said Treasury. And so all of our money prior to 1913 was backed by gold and silver. And in other words, it was not a fiat currency, and it was not able to be manipulated as easily by the money changers and the powers that be. But that's not the point. The point is this. Now your money has 2 seals. Before, it only had 1. Before, when it had 1, you got your money and it was worth what it was worth, and it was harder to manipulate. Nowadays, you have these Federal Reserve notes. It's a completely fiat currency. And what that means is every time they print another dollar, it makes your money worth less because there's more of the money out there. And it's not backed by anything, so it causes inflation by printing it. And I know you've heard of inflation, but it's basically a hidden tax because they print as much money as they want or need, and you pay for it because your money's now worth less as prices rise. So that's not the point. I'm getting a little bit off track here. That was all great knowledge, but here's the point. Title 12 USC 411. If you know about this law and you know how to use it, here's how it works. Anytime you get paid, anytime you get any sort of cash, a paycheck, direct deposit, it doesn't matter. Anytime that you get paid in any way, shape, or form, and it would be taxable income, what you can do is you can go to the bank. And in my case, I'm going to tell you exactly how I do it. And I'll take a picture and I'll put on the screen here a screenshot minus my bank account number of how to endorse your check correctly to redeem lawful money. So this is the law that we're talking about, and here's how to do it. And in essence, the reason I explain the 2 seals is because you assume the black seal, the Federal Reserve seal, you assume Federal Reserve notes, which are the fiat currency, subject to interest, subject to income tax, all that, subject to inflation. You assume that unless you're smart enough to ask for the lawful money, which the lawful money, if you ask for lawful money, remember we just read this law, to put this law back on the screen, they shall be redeemed in lawful money on demand at any bank. Well, when you go to the bank and say, I want lawful money, they're not going to give you pink money or blue money. They're not going to give you any money. They're going to say, okay, demand lawful money. And as soon as you do that, your money, in essence, you're no longer using the Federal Reserve notes, you're using money of the Treasury. But it's a formality. It has absolutely nothing to do with using paper money or a check. The idea is that as long as you are not demanding lawful money, whether you're using a paycheck, cash, whatever, if you're not demanding lawful money, that money is subject to income tax, and it's also subject to inflation. And it's also supporting the Federal Reserve and the IRS, which are privately owned companies that as they grow, they require more money to support them, more taxes to support them, and ultimately means less freedom and less money for you and more power and more money for them. But that's, again, not the point. The point is that if you can take yourself to the bank anytime you get paid, and you can get a deposit slip. You can actually get 2 deposit slips. And this is what I do. When I go to the bank, I get 2 deposit slips. Whether, again, it doesn't matter. I could have $3,000 cash. I could have a check for $10,000. I could have a check for $10. I could have cash for $100. It doesn't matter if it's cash. It doesn't matter if it's check. It doesn't matter if it's from your work. It doesn't matter if it's from your brother. It doesn't matter. If you are getting money and you are tired of the Federal Reserve and the IRS and you're tired of taxes and all that crap, there is a way to opt out of it legally. And that is, again, this Title 12 USC 411, and it's lawful money, because when you go to the bank and you say, give me 2 deposit slips, and you write on one the same thing that you write on the other, you keep one for your records and you give one to the bank. The only reason I ask for 2 deposit slips is so that I have evidence, so that if the IRS says, prove to us that you demanded lawful money, in case the bank wants to conveniently lose my paperwork, then I have a deposit slip from every single paycheck or cash or whatever, every single piece of payment that I got for this year. I have evidence that I demanded lawful money. And the only thing you have to do to show that you demanded lawful money and to not pay income tax and to assume the green or the blue seal rather than the black one, which, again, the money here on the screen, it has 2 seals. You get the worst seal unless you're smart enough to ask for the better seal, being to demand lawful money. Okay? Lawful money is tax exempt. It is not subject to income tax, okay? So when you go to the bank and you take your paycheck or you take your cash and you go to the teller, even in the drive-thru, Corona, doesn't matter. Go through the drive-thru, hit the button, hi, can I get 2 deposit slips? They'll send it through the tube. You fill them out identically. One's for you, one's for the bank. That's just saying, hi, here's my paycheck. But instead of just saying signed by John Doe, you're signing redeemed in lawful money on demand pursuant to Title 12 USC 411 by, sign your name. So a few examples on the screen here. This is how it looks when you properly endorse your check, showing the bank and the IRS that you are demanding lawful money. And that's step 1. There's only one more step of this. This is a 2-step process of how to demand lawful money and how to be free of income tax. So step 1 is demand lawful money, which, how do you do that? You do that by having a deposit slip with, instead of just your signature for the amount, or not, if you're doing a paycheck, you don't even have to do a deposit slip as long as you take a picture of the check front and back. However, with a paycheck, you do the same thing, whether it's a paycheck, deposit slip, it doesn't matter. It's how you endorse your payments. Rather than endorsing it as John Doe, you don't do that. You endorse it as redeemed in lawful money on demand pursuant to Title 12 USC 411. That's the law. Pursuant to that law, sign your name. Sign your name. It's 10 extra words on every one of your paychecks or your pay stubs. And those 10 extra words that you write on your paycheck or your pay stub will save you literally up to half your income. I know for you 6-figure income earners such as myself or higher, they take half your money. Okay? So that's step 1 of how you demand lawful money. Step 2, the last step of this, when you do your tax return. And I'm going to put a number of examples on the screen here now as well. When you do your tax return, this is the same reason that we keep pictures of all that lawful money that we redeemed, and proof of the pictures being proof. That's why we keep these, is because when you do your tax return, in the line where you put in deductions, all your tax deductible expenses and mileage and all that, this is the fun part. Lawful money is income tax exempt. So any amount of income that you demanded in lawful money, you can deduct that on your tax return. And I'll put a million examples on the screen here, and I'll even then put a screenshot of the IRS putting the money in their bank account. Or here's another one, if you don't want to see a screenshot of the IRS putting the money in the bank account, here's another one where it's just a check from the Treasury. This man in Kansas City, Missouri saved $25,000 to $35,000. I've got the screenshot of the Treasury check right here. It was either 25 or 35. I'm having a hard time remembering, but I'll have the picture on the screen for you here. But my point is that when you do these 2 steps, when you redeem lawful money, being endorsing your paychecks, pay stubs properly, that's step 1. Endorse your checks, stubs properly. Step 2, do your tax return correctly. And you know what? I should have started the video with this. Disclaimer, I am not an attorney. I am not an accountant. If what I am saying to you does not make sense, you ought to not do this, because I take no responsibility. I take no accountability. I take no liability for anyone's choices and the repercussions of those choices. But what I'm telling you is as I'm showing you here, the law being Title 12 USC 411, the way to follow it being 2 steps: endorse your checks properly stating the law. Step 2, do your tax returns properly doing the deductions for the amount that you did redeem in lawful money. Those are the only 2 steps. The only thing the IRS can do is say, prove that you redeem lawful money. You do that by showing your stubs, which is why in my case I always do 2, or take a picture of it. And the IRS at that point has no choice. The privately owned IRS and the privately owned Federal Reserve has no choice but to give you your money back, because again, it's a voluntary system that you assume, well, I have to pay my taxes, or I'm not a good person, or I don't have a choice. You do have a choice. And you know that rich people don't pay taxes and that they have ways around it. Well, this is one of them. And it's probably the reason that this law is so vague when you Google it. But I'm showing you a million examples here. And again, if you don't understand it, don't do it. But it's very simple. And if you do understand it, I invite you to do more research until you're at the point where I was, which it's like, you know what? I shouldn't be scared of bullies. That it's the same mentality of the mob. The IRS knocks on your door and says, give us 30% of your income. And you say, why? And they say, so we can protect you. And you say, protect me from what? And they say, what we're going to do to you if you don't give us 30% of your income. And that's exactly it. It's the same mentality as the mob. It's the same business model. It's tyranny, man. And so as long as you understand the law, because here's the thing, again, the IRS and the Federal Reserve, they're privately owned companies. They're not the government. The names were strategically picked to make it sound like the government, but what do you think privately owned means? They're outside the government. They control the government with money and all that, but the Federal Reserve and the IRS, the Supreme Court has ruled 8 different times that even if the 16th Amendment was properly ratified, which it wasn't, that it gave the IRS no new taxing authority. I'll also include a link on here that is the director of the IRS telling you that it's a voluntary system. So again, it's the mob mentality. They make you feel like a bad person if you don't do it. They make you feel like something bad's going to happen if you don't do it. They're going to come after you, and they will. They'll come after you if you don't do it. But again, they are privately owned, and they're not following the law. But that is the law, and if you know about it, then you can very well say bye-bye to their system, because, again, they're bullies, they're privately owned, and they do not want you to know about things like the Treasury and lawful money. They want you to silently use their fiat Federal Reserve notes and continue to borrow yourself into oblivion and use fake money on things that you don't need, rather than learning how to gain financial freedom and not be literally extorted. Because, again, this whole pay us or see what's going to happen if you don't. They're not following the law. They're extorting you, and they're ruling you through fear and hate. Mostly fear. And the whole, you're not a good American if you don't pay taxes. You know that'd be true if the money wasn't misappropriated. Go and do some research as to where the trillions of dollars of taxes, where they go. I mean, I know you've heard the horror stories. If you trust the government, good for you. I personally don't. The system failed me, so I made my own. If we spend the most money on taxes, why don't we have the best schools? Why don't we have the best roads, etc., etc., etc.? Misappropriation of funds? Are you kidding me? I would be happy to pay taxes if I could see where the money was going and if I could see the good that it was doing. Freedom exists only for those strong enough to exercise it, and that's exactly where we're at here. So again, I'm not an attorney, I'm not an accountant. Do not take my advice as that, but do your own research, and if and when you come to the point where you feel like you understand very simply the 2 steps of this law and how to do it to have you and your friends and family maybe be outside of the whole scam that is income tax, so told to you by your Supreme Court 8 different times, telling you that the IRS does not have the authority. 16th Amendment, they do not have any new taxing authority. IRS director telling you it's a voluntary system. Supreme Court telling you 8 different times that they have no new taxing authority. Me telling you that it's a privately owned company, being the IRS and the Federal Reserve, and they're two sides of the same coin existing to enslave you and extort you. But that pretty much does it. I'll put some sources and some links on the screen, and yeah, research lawful money, because I legally do not pay income tax, and I am not afraid of the IRS, and I don't think you should be either, because they're bullies. Same with the Federal Reserve. I used to be scared until I found out about this beautiful, beautiful law. The Constitution is a beautiful thing, and so is the Treasury, so is democracy. But again, getting hijacked by these tyrannical globalists and then having them tell you you're a bad person if you don't just willingly give them half your money and don't ask questions as to where it's going, that's not doing it for me. So ask questions, think for yourself, all that good stuff. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you next time.